All right, guys, welcome back to the Everything College Football Podcast. Today, me and Nick are going to be doing our preview and prediction for the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Looking at the coaching staff, BJ Fleck enters his sixth season. Co-coordinators on both sides of the ball, Matt Simon, he's been with Fleck since the Western Michigan days. He'll be joined by Kirk Caracca, his first season coming over from West Virginia. And Joe Rossi and Paul Haynes will anchor down the defensive coordinator roles. Rossi, him and Simon were actually on the same Rutgers staff back in 2012 and 13. Then Paul Haynes, his fifth year on staff, first year as a defensive play caller. Looking at the offense, Tanner Morgan, Nick, really hasn't been the same since 2019 where he shattered school records. That's when he had Rashad Bateman and Tyler Johnson. That year, those two receivers both sit first and second in school history for single season yards. Morgan, like I just said, shattered records as well. So obviously it was the best passing attack in school history, but since then has not been the same. 17 touchdowns to 14 picks the last 2 years, had 157 yards per game last year. And his shaky play led to games where they couldn't score, like Bowling Green and Illinois. What do you think went wrong with Tanner Morgan? You think it was just the great receivers he had, or do you think he's just spiraled out of control after a strong year for no real reason?
Tanner Morgan definitely got bailed out by his great receivers. Last season, he had a 59.6 completion percentage. That's just not good enough when you're a quarterback in the Big Ten. He only threw for 2,000 yards last year, 10 interceptions, or 10 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Just a poor overall play. And like you said, when you have the talent, especially Rashad Bateman, those guys lit up the scoreboard. They were very talented. They had a ton of receiving yards. And last year, yes, he didn't have a whole lot to throw to, but it makes it more difficult for him. And he just kind of showed that he wasn't as strong as a quarterback as people thought he was following that 2019 campaign.
Yeah, his accuracy has been very shaky. Overall confidence seems shot compared to 2019, where he would fit it in the tight windows with ease. And, he's just not consistent, lacks physical traits. I don't know if he made the right decision to come back for a sixth season. I think it would have been just better to move on. But this is a great team, a lot of brotherhood, a lot of veterans, so I don't blame him for coming back. That includes his receiving core. Gets everyone back. Chris Ottman-Bell headlines it, 6'1", 215. Kind of like a lesser version of Drake London. He can high point the ball, good body control, pretty smooth athlete, pretty physical as well. I like Ottman-Bell. I expected a bigger season from him last year, but again, the quarterback play was not really there. Tight end Breven Spanford. I love this guy. Great blocker. Pretty good pass catcher in space as well. 6'7", 270. That's some great size. Also got Daniel Wright, a guy I was interested to see last year as a transfer from Texas A&M. 20 yards per catch on 18 grabs. Extends his body very well. Also good control. Impressive foot speed. I like Wright at 6'3", 215. And then Michael Brown-Stevens and Daniel Jackson both had 20-plus receptions last year. So they're getting everybody back. You think that'd be the recipe for success for Morgan? How do you feel about this passing game heading into 2022?
I absolutely love the idea of keeping the band together, keeping everyone back. It's great to have continuity in college football, especially with the era of transfers where players come and go and swap teams left and right. I like that he brings back all his pass catchers. Chris Auden-Bell, I think he has the most potential out of this group. He had 500 yards last year, 6 touchdowns as well. I think they're going to look to throw to him early, get him involved in the game, but I also think the tight end play is important. Like you said, Spanford, he's a huge tight end. I think he has potential. I like what he can do. I like to see him get involved in the blocking game as well, potentially. I think the offense will definitely step up in the passing regard this year because, like I said, it's just good to have that continuity, throw to the same guys and I also think the offense will get some boost in the running game as well.
Yeah, they have a phenomenal running game. Minnesota's had a pretty deep backfield for years now. It's no different heading into 22. 3 guys last year had 500-plus yards. Terry Potts, he had 3 straight 100-plus yard games, had 552 in 5 games. Then he got hurt. They have 2 guys that transfer out, but Muhammad Ibrahim is back. He was a projected Heisman finalist of mine last year, and he was off to a great start before tearing his Achilles against Ohio State. 163 yards, 2 touchdowns in that game. Over his career, though, great vision, nice contact balance, and that quick burst have been some of the top traits so far throughout his career. We'll see how he is coming off that injury. That's obviously a major concern, but I think if he comes back good and healthy, he'll be a strong player this year for them. And then back to Terry Potts, he's a pretty urgent runner, fits the scheme. 198 yards per game for Minnesota last year. It doesn't matter who was behind that offensive line, which we'll get to in a minute. It seemed like everybody thrived. They do have Kai Thomas and Marquise Irving transferring out. Obviously, that's kind of big, but they're set with this duo. And again, the way the scheme kind of fits any running back, it seems, of how good they are up front.
Muhammad Ibrahim was a guy that had so much hype in the start of the season. Like you said, he was a Heisman dark horse for some folks. He comes out on that Thursday night game against Ohio State, starts off with a bang, and it looked like he was going to run away with that game. If he stays in that game, I think Minnesota has a chance to even beat Ohio State that night. He gets that injury. It's going to be interesting to see if he can keep up with speed after that. This injury recovery, the ACL tear, It's very difficult to get back from that and keep that speed and pace you had before the injury. I'm hoping that his rehab went well and he was able to get to that same speed. But they also have Terry Potts. They can balance out the run, have a mixing of attack on offense. I really like what this offense has potentially, bringing all these guys back. I think Potts can add a bit of a wild card to the offense. You have to keep an eye on him as well.
Mohamed was a finalist of mine because of the offensive line. They were very nasty. All 5 starters were veterans, and they were back, and they certainly delivered. John Michael Schmitz is the only returning starter that I'm aware of. High-motored guy, 320 pounds. He's going to anchor that center position. They replaced 4 starters, but they had 2 transfers on the right side. Chuck Filiaga from Michigan and Quinn Carroll from Notre Dame. So they come from schools that coach up these linemen very well. Brand new left side, though. I think they still have great size. The philosophy hasn't changed. They have a leader there, the anchor at center. So I'm not too worried about this offensive line despite losing all these guys. Again, though, this offense was very strange. They were 23rd in FBS on third downs. So they did a lot of things very well outside of the passing game. But scoring points was tough. 10 versus Bowling Green, 6 versus Illinois, like I said here at the top of the show. But it was strange because they had 31 and 22 against Ohio State and Iowa, respectively. This team was just really strange, Nick, especially when you consider how good the defense was, which we'll get to in a minute. But I think better execution is really the biggest thing they need to improve on. They definitely have the personnel to do anything they want, I think, this season.
Yeah, I think the coaching is great with Minnesota, and they really build that brotherhood on campus. And this team really likes to work together. Like I said, they stay. A lot of these guys stay. The inconsistency is just what killed them. Like you hit the head on the point there. Only scoring 10 points against Ball State. It's just not acceptable. Or Bowling Green, I'm sorry, but it's just not good enough when you can't put up points like that. But you can put up 30 points against Ohio State. So if they can find that sort of key and that consistency, we're going to get to the schedule a bit later, and they can kind of nail it out early, be able to consistently put up 20, 30 points a game, this team could be in great potential because the defense is really strong and it's going to hold teams to a low amount of points this season.
Yeah, more against Iowa than they had against BG and Illinois combined. That was just very odd. And this team had a lot more they could have accomplished if they won those games. Looking at the defense, though, I was quite concerned with this unit coming into the year, but they more than delivered. In 2020, they allowed 30 points per game and 415 yards per game. Cut those numbers down significantly. 17 points per game, 278 yards per game. They put up those numbers despite playing 6 more games this year as well compared to 2020. So just insane work PJ Fleck did with his defense. Ranked 8th in FBS in run and pass defense. They also had the 6th fewest plays, so the offense was on the field clearly a lot. They were just so good at getting off the field, though. That's another reason for that. They only had 5 20-yard or more runs. For comparison, Georgia was the only team better with 3. So this defense certainly was legit. They get back 7 starters. They do lose a key player in all 3 levels. I do love this defensive line. Well, front 7 as a whole, really. Despite having Boye Mafa as a pass rusher, they weren't all that good at getting to the quarterback. He had 7 of the team's 25 sacks. That was ranked 80th in college football. They get Thomas Rush back, a twitchy athlete. They expect him to be a hybrid player off the edge, playing a stand-up role in coverage. I think Rush is certainly going to be in for a breakout year. And Ja Joyner, a young athletic guy that only played in 4 games, but he was unleashed in the bowl game. He made a slight impact. What's your thoughts on this pass rush that had a top draft pick last April here? But I don't know. They're kind of concerning, but at the same time, I like what they got.
I think the pass rush definitely is an area of concern, like you said, but I think Thomas Rush has potential to break out. I like what he can do. Very talented player. He had 5.5 sacks last year. There is some potential here. I really think these guys can step up. Like you said, they lose a guy to the draft who had 7 sacks last year. It's tough to replace that production when you have bit part pieces that are going to be stepping in. But overall, I think with the coaching, the way it works, the 2 defensive coordinators working together, I think this defensive line will be just as good as it was last year.
And they're going to certainly need the interior defensive line to perform like it did last year. Darnell Jeffries comes over from Clemson, a former 4-star. Remember, Niles Pickney did the same thing last year. Comes over as a former high-end recruit from Clemson. He really, he was a pretty respectable contributor, too. So I think Jeffries, that's a guy they're looking to get a lot out of. Trill Carter as well, a veteran back. Not very versatile, but he's forceful, disruptive lineman. I like what they got on the interior. I don't know how depth it will be. It's not ultra concerning, but, there's some guys that really need to prove themselves. But they got a good production, I think, out of this defensive line. A lot of disruptive nature up there. So I think overall this defensive line, they like what they got, and they should certainly be a top run defense yet again. You look at linebacker, Mariano Martin. He was quite productive for being not that athletic. 85 tackles, 2 fumbles, a few pass breakups. He had a pick, 5 tackles for loss. Braylon Oliver, he should step up to fill that void left by Jack Gibbons. He was a former FCS transfer that was phenomenal for them. Oliver, though, an athletic guy that can match up with tight ends. He's been a high key. He's showcased he can be a high IQ player as well. Cody Lichtenberg is a guy Joe Rossi really likes. Some of the depth guys have struggled with health the past 2 seasons, so I think if they can remain healthy in the middle, I think they really like what they got despite some concerns.
Braylon Oliver played in 13 games last season. He recorded 24 total tackles. I think he has real potential to step up. I like his name a lot on this linebacking core. He played a lot. He had some experience last year. Didn't quite make the impact that some people thought he might, but he's going to just step up and be able to make the impact and fill that hole that Jack Gibbons had. Like you said, they have to replace 4.5 tackles for loss and 92 total tackles from Jack Gibbons. I like Oliver to be the man to step up and do that. I think he has real potential here. I also look at, Sawyer Martin. I think he has real potential as well. I think he can step up and make some good plays this year.
Now, the biggest reason I love this defense is this secondary has so much upside. They added Beanie Bishop, who played for Western Kentucky last year. That was a secondary ranked second in FBS in picks. They had plenty of playmaking to go around there. They seem to play with a lot of energy. And, his slim frame is going to limit him to the slot, but I think that's exactly what they need because they're kind of set everywhere else. Tyler Nubbin, great closing speed and coverage, seems to rarely get tested. He's a veteran there. And alongside of him is Jordan Howden, a 6-foot, 210-pounder that can play in the box, match up with guys in the slot, be physical against the run. I love this safety duo Minnesota has. Two veterans that do a variety of things very well. At corner, Justin Whaley. He had 7 pass breakups during his debut season last fall. Ryan Stapp. He comes from the FCS level. Albaline Christian, I believe. That was the same school Gibbons came from. He's going to be the other cornerback. Michael Dixon, a name to watch. A player they really liked in coverage. He might get some time at safety. This is a really good secondary, and I think they could certainly, with the addition of Bishop, make the case to be one of the nation's best.
I like Michael Dixon to get some more time. He hit the nail on the head with that one. 7 games last year, 4 total tackles for him. I think he has potential to step up and make some good plays in the secondary. I also like the addition of Bishop. I think he adds a bit of variety and adds some talent here that they can use. Solid secondary for the Minnesota Gophers.
Looking at the schedule preview and prediction, the first 3 weeks, the non-conference is a flat-out joke, Nick. They might not allow a single point over the first 3 games. I'm not even joking when I say that because they shut out Colorado last year on the road. Overall, really good football team. They should have won 11 games last year when they lost to Bowling Green and Illinois. Games they should have won. I think Tanner Morgan needs to be better, but I like what they have at pass catcher. The running game is going to be strong. He'll have protect 277 yards or less over the final 7 games. They avoid Michigan and Ohio State this year. I honestly think this team can make the playoffs if they show the same discipline they did last year, play with the same energy on defense, along with an improved running game, or passing game, rather. I think that's certainly the formula to get this team to the playoffs. I don't think it's far-fetched one bit. The last 2 games, though, are versus teams that match up with them very well. With them being late in November, of course, those are going to be the tougher games to pick at this moment in time. So we're going to pick the team that I think is better. So 93 is the mark. Over/unders at 7.5. Seems like good money, but Purdue was tough. At Penn State could certainly cause fits. Really excited about this team, though. And I'm legit when I think they could be a playoff contender here in the Big Ten.
This is a great schedule for this team. Like you said, they avoid Ohio State and Michigan. The over/under at 7.5. I think they clear that very easily. 9 is very attainable for this team. The non-conference, like you said, miserably poor. These are cakewalks in every literal term of that definition. At Michigan State at the end of September is an interesting one. They might be able to sneak a win there. I like the way it's set up. I think that the final 2 games is really going to come down to if they can get to double-digit wins. When they play Iowa and Wisconsin, the potential to get double-digit wins, if they can steal one of those games late in the season. At home to Iowa is definitely a lot of potential there, especially if the fans get up for it. 9-3, 10-2 are definitely very achievable for this Minnesota team. They should be playing in a high-end bowl game at the end of the season.
Now, if they're at 10 or 11 wins and they win the division, they'll have an opportunity to go against an Ohio State or Michigan team that will also have double-figure wins, potentially even undefeated. So they will definitely have more than a few opportunities to make the playoffs. Schedule overall is not great. I think if teams like the teams I have them losing to perform the way they're expected, that'd be enough of a resume builder, along with that 4th win in Indianapolis. I think that'd be enough to get them over the hump. We'll see what happens. I love what PJ Fleck's doing down there. This was fun, Nick. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.